Winter in Montana is unforgiving. The biting cold, the deep snow, and the relentless winds make survival a privilege reserved for only the strongest. Amidst this frozen wilderness, a small bobcat cub wandered alone, its blue eyes filled with fear. His name was Max, and he was being hunted. At only 4 months old, Max was too young to hunt and too weak to endure the brutal winter. His mother had vanished 3 days earlier while searching for food, leaving him alone in a snow-covered forest. Hunger clawed at his belly, forcing him to leave the safety of his den beneath a fallen tree. But as his tiny paws left imprints on the thick snow, Max had no idea that something deadly was stalking him. A pack of wolves, led by the alpha female Shadow, had picked up his scent. Starving from the harsh winter, the wolves decided that Max would be their next meal. They moved in silence, surrounding him step by step. By the time Max realized the danger, it was too late. Every escape route was blocked. Max let out a weak warning hiss, fluffing up his fur to make himself appear bigger. But the wolves weren't fooled. They closed in, their eyes gleaming with hunger, ready to strike. Not far away, Jim Harrison, a veteran wildlife biologist, was conducting a routine survey when he heard a desperate cry that pierced through the frozen air. With nearly 30 years of experience, Jim instantly recognized the sound of a young animal in distress. His instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. Jim didn't hesitate. He moved quickly through the towering pines, his snowshoes crunching against the ice. When he reached the clearing, he froze at the sight before him. A pack of wolves had cornered a tiny bobcat cub against a snow-covered rock face. The cub was alone, terrified, and fighting for its life. Jim knew nature had its rules. Wolves needed to hunt to survive. But looking at Max, small, defenseless, and moments away from death, he couldn't stand by and do nothing. Without a second thought, Jim reached into his backpack and pulled out a special deterrent device, a combination of high-frequency sound and a scent that mimicked the presence of a larger predator. He activated it and tossed it between the wolves and the cub. A piercing noise filled the air, and a pungent scent spread through the clearing. Shadow recoiled, ears flattening against her skull. The pack hesitated, their hunger clashing with their instincts to avoid danger. Shadow locked eyes with Jim, sizing him up. For a long moment, predator and protector faced each other. Then, as if making a calculated decision, Shadow threw her head back and let out a sharp howl. The pack turned and melted into the forest, leaving Max panting, exhausted but alive. Jim had saved Max, but the cub's fight for survival was far from over. Jim knelt beside Max, gently inspecting him. The cub was painfully thin, his fur patchy, and his eyes dull with exhaustion. Jim knew that if he left Max in the wild, he wouldn't last another night. With a heavy heart, he made a decision that would change both their lives. Jim carefully wrapped Max in his coat and carried him back to his truck. His destination: the Montana Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, where his daughter, Sarah, worked as a dedicated wildlife veterinarian. Sarah had cared for many animals before, but when she saw Max, she knew this one was special. Malnourished, dehydrated, and weak, but still clinging to life, Max embodied the raw resilience of the wild. She named him Max, symbolizing his strength and will to survive. The first few days were a race against time. Max was given fluids, small portions of food, and constant care. Slowly, he regained his strength. As he improved, Sarah began training him for life in the wild, teaching him how to stalk, hunt, and fend for himself. Under her care, Max transformed. The fragile, starving cub grew into a strong, agile predator, his golden fur shining with health. And then came the day when Sarah and Jim both knew Max was ready to go home. The morning of Max's release was crisp and clear. Jim and Sarah transported him to a secluded area deep in the wilderness, far from human activity but rich with prey. As the cage door swung open, Max didn't rush out. He turned back, looking at Jim and Sarah one last time, his amber eyes filled with something almost human, gratitude. Then, with a powerful leap, he disappeared into the forest, free at last. Months passed, and Jim continued monitoring the area where Max had been released. One day, while checking his cameras, he found something extraordinary, a fully grown bobcat, strong and healthy, moving gracefully through the snow. It was Max. But the greatest discovery came 5 years later. During a routine survey, Jim stumbled upon something even more incredible, a den, hidden beneath a rocky overhang. Peering through the trees, he spotted a familiar figure. Max. But this time, he wasn't alone. 2 tiny cubs huddled beside him. Max had survived. He had found a mate. And now, he was raising the next generation of bobcats in Montana's wilderness. Jim watched in awe, feeling a surge of pride. The cub he had once saved was no longer just a survivor, he was a guardian of the wild. Max's story wasn't just about one bobcat's survival. It was a testament to resilience, hope, and the power of a single decision. What if Jim hadn't been there that day? What if he had followed the strict rules of non-intervention? Max would have been another lost soul in the cycle of nature. But because one man chose to act, Max didn't just survive, he thrived. His existence restored balance to the ecosystem, proving that human compassion, when guided by knowledge and respect for nature, can create a lasting impact. And somewhere, deep in the Montana wilderness, Max's legacy continues. Max's journey from a helpless cub to a thriving guardian of the wild carries a profound lesson about the power of compassion and action. In our daily lives, we often encounter moments where we can either step in and make a difference or walk away. Jim's decision to save Max was not just an act of kindness, it was a moment of conscious choice, proving that small actions can have far-reaching consequences. This story reminds us that one choice, one moment of courage, can change a life. Whether it's standing up for someone, protecting nature, or simply offering a helping hand, our actions create ripples that extend beyond what we can see. Like Jim, we must balance wisdom and courage, knowing when to intervene and when to trust the natural course of life. Max's survival is also a testament to resilience, the ability to face hardship, endure struggles, and emerge stronger. Life is unpredictable, often presenting challenges that seem impossible. But, like Max, we must learn, adapt, and forge our own path. Ultimately, compassion, knowledge, and action are the key ingredients for making a lasting impact, in both nature and human society. What we choose to do today matters, not just for ourselves, but for future generations.